Welcome, dear viewers. For more exclusive, thrilling stories every week, join our membership. Sit back, relax, and sip your coffee. Enjoy. I don't know who needs to hear this, but stay away from Kwik Trip number 483 in Halleck, Minnesota. You've probably seen the news by now. 3 employees found unconscious in the walk-in freezer last month, eyes wide open, skin blue as winter sky, but still breathing. The 4th one, Tony Gustafson, vanished without a trace. The security footage showed him walking into the bathroom at 3:17 a.m. and never coming out. The authorities called it an unexplained workplace incident and blamed it on carbon monoxide poisoning. But I know better. I know because I was Tony's replacement. My name is Finn Larson. 6 weeks ago, I was just another broke college dropout with mounting debt and a reputation for quitting jobs as soon as I started them. My parents had finally cut me off after I bailed on my 3rd attempt at community college, so I packed everything I owned into my beat-up Chevy Impala and headed north to stay with my uncle in Kitson County. Halleck is one of those towns where everybody knows everybody, where gossip travels faster than internet service, and where the winter wind cuts through your clothes like they're made of tissue paper. Population 981, and most of them have lived here their entire lives. The only reason anyone ever stops in Halleck is to gas up before crossing into Canada, or to buy cheap cigarettes at the reservation 20 miles east. Uncle Lars didn't ask questions when I showed up at his doorstep. He just nodded, showed me to the spare room above his garage, and told me I could stay as long as I contributed. By contribute, he meant get a job and help with bills. Kwik Trip's hiring, he mentioned over dinner my second night there. They're desperate after what happened. I'd seen the headline on my drive in, something about employees hospitalized, but hadn't paid much attention. Small-town news rarely interested me. What exactly happened there? I asked between bites of his surprisingly good Swedish meatballs. Uncle Lars shrugged. Nobody's quite sure. 4 night shift workers had some kind of episode. 3 are in the hospital up in Grand Forks. 4th one just up and disappeared. He leaned forward, lowering his voice despite us being alone in the house. Marlene at the diner says they found weird symbols scratched into the freezer walls, like someone was trying to keep something in or out. I laughed. Sounds like small-town superstition to me. Maybe so. He took a swig of his beer. But they're offering $22 an hour for the overnight shift. Nobody local will take it. That caught my attention. $22 an hour was nearly double minimum wage. I could save up enough to get my own place in a couple months at that rate. The next morning, I drove to Kwik Trip number 483. It sat alone on Highway 75, just at the edge of town, its red and white sign like a beacon against the flat, snow-dusted farmland stretching in every direction. The store itself was newer than I expected, all glass and gleaming surfaces. But something about it seemed wrong, like a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. The manager, Patricia Olson, hired me on the spot. She was a heavy-set woman in her 50s with bleached blonde hair and deep lines around her mouth from years of smoking. Night shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., she said, sliding the paperwork across her desk. You'll be alone most nights. Not gonna be a problem. No, ma'am, I replied, signing the forms without reading them. I prefer working alone. She nodded, but her eyes darted away. There are some procedures we follow here at night. Special rules. Nothing complicated, just store policy. Rules? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Patricia reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a laminated sheet of paper. Just follow these, and everything will be fine. She handed it to me, and I felt a strange weight to the paper, like it was made of something denser than it should have been. I glanced down at the list. 10 numbered items, typed in a simple font. They seemed odd. Specific times to check certain areas, items that couldn't be sold after midnight, instructions about the bathroom and the coffee machines. These seem unusual, I said. Patricia's face tightened. Every Kwik Trip has its quirks. This location just has a few more than most. She stood up abruptly. Your shift starts tonight. Don't be late. As I walked out to my car, I noticed something on the roof of the building. A small black object, like a carved figurine, perched above the entrance. I squinted, trying to make out what it was, but the sun caught my eyes. When I looked again, it was gone. I didn't think much of it at the time. I should have run then and never looked back. Little did I know that Kwik Trip number 483 wasn't just a gas station. It was a threshold, and I had just agreed to become its keeper. Uncle Lars raised his eyebrows when I told him I'd been hired for the night shift. You sure about that, Finn? After what happened to those folks? I shrugged, scrolling through my phone. 22 an hour to stand around and sell snacks? I'd work in a morgue for that kind of money. He didn't laugh. Just be careful. This town might seem boring, but... He trailed off, focusing on his crossword puzzle. But what? Nothing. He folded his newspaper. Some places just have history, that's all. I arrived at Kwik Trip at 9:45 p.m. for my first shift. The evening clerk, a college-aged girl named Jenny, barely acknowledged me as she counted down her register. You're the new guy, huh? She didn't look up from the bills. Good luck. Thanks, I replied, setting my backpack down behind the counter. Any tips for the overnight? Jenny finally met my eyes, her expression flat. Just follow the rules. Those weird instructions Patricia gave me. Are they for real? Jenny zipped her bag closed with unnecessary force. I wouldn't know. I leave before 10. She headed toward the door, then paused. Oh, and don't go into the storage room unless you absolutely have to. Why not? It smells weird, like really weird. She was gone before I could ask anything else. The first hour passed uneventfully. I stocked coolers, wiped down counters, and helped the occasional customer buying gas or late-night snacks. By 11 p.m., the store was empty, and the world outside had gone dark and still. The only sounds were the quiet hum of refrigerators and the soft tick of the clock behind the counter. I pulled out the laminated rule sheet Patricia had given me. At 11:30 p.m., locked a bathroom door and placed the out-of-order sign. Do not remove this sign until 5 a.m. The coffee machines must be unplugged at exactly midnight. Do not plug them back in until 4:13 a.m. If the phone rings between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., allow it to ring exactly 3 times, then answer. Say only, Kwik Trip 483. How may I help you? If you hear nothing but breathing, hang up immediately. The walk-in freezer must remain closed between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. No exceptions. If you see a customer wearing a red scarf, do not make eye contact. Complete their transaction quickly and do not engage in conversation. Do not sell milk after 1 a.m. If a stray dog appears at the window, draw the blinds and remain at the register until it leaves. At 3:33 a.m., face the security camera in the northeast corner and count backward from 10. Do this even if you think no one is watching. The chips in aisle 3 sometimes fall off the shelves. Return them only using the tongs kept behind the counter. If you notice the bathroom door is open at any point during your shift, despite having locked it, close the store immediately and leave the premises. Do not return until sunrise. I snorted. This had to be some kind of hazing ritual for new employees. Probably Jenny or Patricia would be watching the security footage, laughing at me following these ridiculous instructions. Still, $22 an hour to play along with their game. Easy money. At 11:30, I dutifully locked the bathroom and hung the out-of-order sign. No big deal. Most nights we probably didn't get any customers who needed it anyway. At midnight, I unplugged the coffee machines. That one actually made me feel bad. What if a trucker came in wanting coffee? But rules were rules, even stupid ones. Around 12:45 a.m., a man in a John Deere cap entered, nodding silently at me before browsing the snack aisle. He brought a bag of chips and a Mountain Dew to the counter. As I rang him up, he glanced at the dark coffee machines. "No coffee tonight?" "Machines are down," I said, bagging his items. "Sorry about that." He frowned. "That's odd. I stop here every Tuesday night on my way back from Roseau. Always get the same cup of French roast." I hadn't realized it was Tuesday. Had Patricia known this regular customer would come in? Was this some kind of test? "Sorry," I repeated. "Maybe try the diner down the street." He shook his head. "Nah, they close at midnight." He took his bag and headed to the door, then stopped and turned. "You're new." "First night," I confirmed. "They tell you about the rules?" My hand instinctively touched the laminated sheet in my pocket. "Yeah." He nodded. "Follow them." Then he was gone. At 1:17 a.m., the phone rang. I jumped, nearly dropping the energy drink I'd been sipping to stay awake. I counted 1 ring, 2 rings, 3, then picked up. "Kwik Trip 483. How may I help you?" Silence, then soft breathing. The hairs on my arm stood up. I slammed the phone down, heart racing. Coincidence? It had to be. Someone with a wrong number or a bored teenager making prank calls. At 2 a.m., I did a quick walkthrough of the store, making sure everything was in order. All quiet, except a bag of chips had fallen from its rack in aisle 3. I froze, staring at the bright yellow package on the floor. Hadn't I just straightened that display an hour ago? I remembered rule number 9. This was ridiculous. I started to bend down to pick it up, then hesitated. What if someone was watching? I didn't want to lose this job over something so stupid. With a frustrated sigh, I went behind the counter and found the tongs, actual metal barbecue tongs, exactly where the rules said they'd be. Using them, I picked up the chip bag and placed it back on the shelf, feeling utterly foolish. As I turned to go back to the counter, I heard a soft scratching noise from the direction of the bathroom, like fingernails on the door. I stopped breathing. The sound came again. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Slowly, I walked to the front of the store and looked down the hallway toward the restrooms. The out-of-order sign hung undisturbed. The door remained closed, but as I watched, the handle jiggled slightly. I backed away, nearly tripping over my own feet. This wasn't funny anymore. Someone was messing with me. "Hello," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "Is someone there?" The handle stopped moving. The silence felt heavier than before. I returned to the register, keeping my eyes on the bathroom door. Nothing happened for the rest of the hour, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting just on the other side. At 3:33 a.m., I faced the northeast security camera as instructed and counted backward from 10, feeling like an absolute idiot. As I finished, the lights throughout the store flickered once, then steadied. Probably just a power surge. It didn't mean anything. By the time my shift ended at 6 a.m., I'd convinced myself that everything unusual had been the product of an overactive imagination fueled by energy drinks and small-town ghost stories. The morning clerk, an older man named Harold, arrived precisely on time. His eyebrows rose when he saw me. "You made it," he said, sounding genuinely surprised. Was there any doubt? Harold merely shrugged, but the relief in his face was unmistakable. As I walked to my car in the pale morning light, I looked back at the store. For a moment, I thought I saw a dark figure in the window, tall and thin, watching me leave. I blinked, and it was gone. I slept poorly that day, dreams filled with ringing foams and scratching sounds. When I finally gave up and dragged myself out of bed around 4 in the afternoon, Uncle Lars was at the kitchen table cleaning his hunting rifle. "How was the first night?" he asked, not looking up from his task. "Quiet," I lied. No need to admit I'd been spooked by some silly rules and my own imagination. Boring, actually. He worked the cloth down the barrel with practiced hands. "Olsson stopped by while you were sleeping." "Olssons?" "Sven and Maggie. They own the farm up the road." He paused. "Wanted to know if you were the new night clerk at the Kwik Trip." Something about his tone made me uneasy. Word travels fast. Small town. He finally looked up. "They lost their son Eric there." I frowned. "At the Kwik Trip? What happened?" "He was the night manager before Patricia. About 5 years back. Went missing during his shift." Lars reassembled the rifle with quick movements. Security footage showed him walking into that storage room and never coming out. My mouth went dry. "They never found him?" Lars shook his head. "County sheriff searched the whole building. Nothing. Place was locked from the inside." He stood up, storing the rifle in its case. "Just thought you should know." On my drive to work that evening, I took a detour past the Kitson County Historical Society, really just a small building next to the library. A woman with gray hair pulled into a tight bun was locking up. "Excuse me," I called, rolling down my window. "Do you know anything about the history of the Kwik Trip on Highway 75? She turned slowly, keys still in hand. "Why do you ask?" "I work there," I said. "Just curious about the building." Her expression shifted. "That plot of land used to belong to the Svensson family. They were unusual people." "Unusual how?" She glanced at her watch. "I need to go, but..." She hesitated, then walked over to my car. "That gas station sits on what used to be their root cellar. Lars Svensson, no relation to your uncle, was found there in 1931. They said he'd been keeping things down there. Things. Not things you'd want to find in the normal cellar." She stepped back. "If I were you, I'd find another job." I arrived at the Kwik Trip 10 minutes early. Jenny was already counting her drawer, looking anxious to leave. "Anything I should know from today?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "All normal." She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Oh, but Patricia wants you to restock the cooler. Pepsi truck came late." I nodded. "No problem." As she gathered her things, I cleared my throat. "Hey, Jenny? Do you know anything about a guy named Eric Olsson who used to work here?" She froze, then slowly zipped her bag. "Don't ask about it." "Why not?" "Because some things are better left alone." She headed for the door, then paused. "Did you follow the rules last night?" "Yeah." She nodded. "Keep doing that." The bell above the door jingled as she left. Stocking the cooler took longer than expected. By the time I finished, it was already 11:15 p.m. No customers had come in, and the store felt unusually quiet, as if the usual background noises had been muffled. I walked to the bathroom, following Rule 1 by locking it and hanging the out of order sign. As I turned away, I caught movement in my peripheral vision. Something dark shifted in the beverage cooler I'd just stocked. I spun around. Nothing there but rows of neatly arranged sodas and energy drinks. At midnight, I unplugged the coffee machines as required. A truck driver came in shortly after, looking disappointed when I told him we had no coffee. "When will it be back up?" he asked, scratching his beard. "After 4?" I replied, remembering Rule 2's oddly specific time of 4:13 a.m. He grunted and grabbed an energy drink instead. As he paid, he glanced toward the bathroom hallway and frowned. Someone in there? I followed his gaze. The hallway was empty. No, bathroom's out of order tonight. Huh. He squinted. Thought I saw someone walk down there. My skin prickled. Must have been a shadow. He didn't look convinced, but left without another word. At 1 a.m., I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Uncle Lars. I was about to call him back when the store phone rang. 3 rings, then I picked up. Kwik Trip 483. How may I help you? Breathing, soft and rhythmic. Then so quietly I almost missed it. A whisper. Eric. I slammed the phone down, heart hammering against my ribs. My hands trembled as I pulled out the rule sheet and read number 3 again. It didn't say what to do if the caller actually spoke. I tried calling my uncle, but the line was dead. No dial tone, nothing. My cell phone showed no service. At 1:30 a.m., I noticed the milk in the dairy case. Gallon jugs lined up in neat rows. One of them had tipped over, white liquid slowly spreading across the shelf. I remembered Rule 6. No selling milk after 1 a.m. Was this why? I grabbed paper towels and cleaned up the spill, righting the jug. As I did, I noticed something strange about the consistency. Thicker than milk should be, almost like glue. When I turned around, a bag of chips lay on the floor in aisle 3. My throat tightened. I got the tongs from behind the counter and carefully picked up the bag. As I placed it back on the shelf, I heard a soft thud from the back of the store. The storage room. I should ignore it. Nothing in the rules said I had to investigate strange noises. But curiosity pulled at me, mixed with a growing sense that these rules weren't just some practical joke. I walked slowly toward the storage room, flashlight in hand. The door was slightly ajar, darkness spilling out like ink. Hello? My voice sounded thin in the quiet store. No response, but the darkness seemed to shift, as if it had density and weight. I pushed the door open wider with my foot. The smell hit me immediately. Not the chemical cleanser scent you'd expect, but something earthier, like freshly turned soil and something underneath it. Something rotten. The beam of my flashlight revealed normal shelves stacked with inventory. Paper products, boxes of candy, cleaning supplies. Nothing unusual except for a small door in the back wall. A closet, maybe, or access to plumbing. I'd taken 3 steps into the room when I heard the distinct sound of the bathroom door handle turning. I whirled around, heart racing. Rule 10 echoed in my mind. If you notice the bathroom door is open at any point during your shift, despite having locked it, close the store immediately and leave the premises. I backed out of the storage room, keeping my eyes fixed on the hallway leading to the bathroom. The handle turned again, more forcefully this time, then stopped. I stood frozen, unsure what to do. Run? Stay at the register as the rules required for some situations. The rules didn't specify what to do if the door tried to open, but didn't actually succeed. A sharp crack split the silence as the bathroom door shuddered in its frame. Something wanted out. I ran to the front of the store, ready to flip the sign to closed and bolt, when headlights swept across the parking lot. A car pulled up to the pump outside. An ordinary-looking middle-aged woman in a winter coat entered, nodding politely. "Just the gas on pump 3, please." I rang her up on autopilot, trying not to show my panic. As she handed me her credit card, I noticed she was wearing a red scarf. Rule 5 flashed through my mind. If you see a customer wearing a red scarf, do not make eye contact. Complete their transaction quickly, and do not engage in conversation. I kept my eyes down, swiping her card and handing her the receipt without a word. "You're awfully quiet tonight," she said, voice pleasant. "Everything okay?" I nodded, still not looking up. "You can look at me, young man. I don't bite." She laughed, the sound wrong somehow, too hollow, too rehearsed. "Have a good night," I mumbled, focusing on the counter. She didn't move. "I knew Eric, you know. Such a nice boy. You remind me of him." Every muscle in my body tensed. I said nothing. He didn't follow the rules. Her voice dropped lower. "Don't make his mistake." When I finally looked up, she was gone. The store was empty, though I hadn't heard the door chime. Outside, Pump 3 stood vacant. No car, no woman. At 3:33 a.m., I faced the northeast camera and counted backward from 10 as instructed. As I reached 1, the lights flickered, and every screen in the store, the register, the ATM, the lottery machine, briefly showed the same image: a dark figure standing in the bathroom. By morning, I was a wreck. I'd spent the remaining hours of my shift standing rigidly at the register, jumping at every noise. The bathroom door had stopped its assault, but occasional scratching sounds continued until dawn. Harold arrived at 6 a.m. sharp, taking one look at me and frowning. "Rough night?" I nodded weakly. "You saw something," he stated, not a question. "The woman in the red scarf," I whispered. "She wasn't real, was she?" Harold's face paled. "You talked to her?" "No." "Well, she talked to me. I didn't respond." He relaxed slightly. "Good. That's good." He hesitated. "Look, if you're smart, you won't come back tonight. What happens if I don't follow the rules?" Harold's eyes darted toward the bathroom hallway. "You become one of them." I should have quit right then. Any reasonable person would have. But I've never been accused of being reasonable, and frankly, I needed the money. Plus, something about this situation had hooked into my curiosity like a fish barb, painful to remove. Uncle Lars was out when I got home, so I collapsed into bed without bothering to eat. My sleep was fractured by dreams of red scarves and bathroom doors that wouldn't stay locked. I woke to knocking around 3 in the afternoon. Uncle Lars stood in the doorway, concern etched across his weathered face. "You look like hell, kid." I sat up groggily. "Thanks. Got something for you." He tossed a small object onto the bed, a silver pendant on a leather cord, a 5-pointed star inscribed with symbols I didn't recognize. "What's this supposed to be?" "Protection." He crossed his arms. "Belonged to your grandmother. She was Sami, you know." I turned the pendant over in my hand. "Like from northern Scandinavia?" He nodded. "The old people brought more than recipes when they came here. They brought their beliefs too." He shifted uncomfortably. "You should wear it, especially at that gas station." "You don't actually believe—" "Just wear it, Finn." His tone left no room for argument. "And call me if anything strange happens." After he left, I fired up my laptop and searched for information about Kwik Trip number 483. Most results were benign: job postings, company press releases, but a few local news articles caught my attention. The first, from 5 years ago: local man missing, Eric Olson, 24, disappeared during night shift. The article mentioned police finding no evidence of foul play, though security cameras showed he never left the building. The second, dated 3 years ago: unexplained phenomena plague local business. This one detailed customer complaints about unusual cold spots, electronic malfunctions, and unsettling encounters with staff who didn't seem quite right. The most recent was from last month. 4 employees hospitalized after late-night incident. It reported that 3 were found unconscious in the freezer, while the 4th, Anthony Tony Gustafson, remained missing. Authorities suspected carbon monoxide poisoning, though tests came back negative. I dug deeper, searching for historical information about the property. A local history blog provided the missing pieces. The land had originally belonged to Lars Svensson, an immigrant from Sweden who'd built a farmhouse there in the late 1800s. In 1931, he was found dead in his root cellar, surrounded by strange artifacts and journal entries describing entities that walk between worlds. The property changed hands several times before Kwik Trip purchased it in 2010. Before heading to work, I slipped the pendant around my neck, feeling foolish, but strangely comforted by its weight against my chest. Patricia was at the store when I arrived, sorting through paperwork in her small office. "Heard you had an interesting second night?" she said without looking up. I froze in the doorway. "Who told you that?" "Harold mentions things." She finally met my eyes. "You saw her, didn't you? The woman in the red scarf." My mouth went dry. "You know about her?" Patricia sighed, suddenly looking much older. "Sit down, Finn." She gestured to the chair across from her desk. "I should explain some things." I sat, heart thumping against my ribs. "That building," she began, "it's not normal. Never has been. When they built it, they found things in the ground. Old things. The construction crew wanted to stop, but corporate pushed ahead." "What kind of things?" "Symbols carved in stone. Bones arranged in patterns. A box made of some metal they couldn't identify." She rubbed her temples. "They moved it all, built right over the site." "And then what?" "Then people started seeing things, hearing things." She pulled open a drawer and took out a bottle of pills, swallowing one dry. "At first we thought it was just stories. Every small town has them, right? But then employees started going missing. Eric first, then others." "Tony Gustafson," I supplied. She nodded. "We found the rules taped to the bathroom mirror one morning. Don't know who put them there. The cameras showed nothing. But we noticed something. If we followed them, nothing bad happened." "So you just accepted it?" "People vanishing. Weird rules appearing from nowhere." Patricia's laugh held no humor. "What would you have me do? Call corporate and tell them our store is haunted? That we need to follow magic rules to keep the monsters away?" She shook her head. "They'd shut us down. And then what happens to this town? Kwik Trip is the biggest employer here now that the mill closed." I thought about that. Halleck was already dying like so many small towns. Without the gas station, it might disappear entirely. "So what are these things? Ghosts?" She looked uncomfortable. "Not exactly. More like visitors. They can only cross over at certain times, under certain conditions. The rules prevent those conditions. And the woman in the red scarf? She's the worst of them." Patricia's voice dropped to a whisper. "She looks for weaknesses, tests boundaries. Don't have her speak to her." The store phone rang, making us both jump. "That'll be Jenny," Patricia said, standing. "She's running late." Before leaving for the night, Patricia handed me a key on a plain metal ring. "For the storage room cabinet," she explained. "There's a box inside with chalk, salt, and some other items. If the bathroom door opens, not just tries to open but actually opens, use them to draw a circle around yourself. Stay inside it until dawn." I pocketed the key, nodding despite my skepticism. The first few hours of my shift passed quietly. I checked off the rules methodically. Lock the bathroom at 11:30. Unplug coffee machines at midnight. The phone rang at 1:05 a.m. 3 rings, then I answered. "Kwik Trip 483. How may I help you?" This time, instead of breathing, I heard what sounded like water dripping. Slow, steady plops in the background. Then a man's voice, distant yet clear. "They're coming up through the floor now." The line went dead. I stood frozen, receiver still pressed to my ear, blood rushing in my veins. A crash from aisle 3 broke the spell. I hung up and cautiously approached the sound. Not just one bag of chips this time. The entire rack had toppled, sending bags scattering across the linoleum. I remembered Rule 9. The chips in aisle 3 sometimes fall off the shelves. Return them only using the tongs kept behind the counter. I grabbed the tongs and began picking up bags, my hands shaking. Each time I put one back, I could feel something watching me. The weight of unseen eyes pressed against my back, yet every time I turned around, I was alone. The mess took nearly 20 minutes to clean. As I returned the last bag to the shelf, the store went completely silent. The ever-present hum of coolers, the soft buzz of fluorescent lights, all stopped. In that vacuum of sound, I heard it clearly, a wet, sliding noise from behind the bathroom door, like something large and damp dragging itself across tile, then scratching, not the tentative sounds from previous nights, but frantic, desperate clawing. I backed away, fingers closing around the storage room key in my pocket. At the back of the store, I fumbled with the lock on the metal cabinet Patricia had mentioned. Inside, I found an old shoebox containing a bag of salt, a stub of chalk, and a small leather-bound book. I grabbed everything and hurried back to the front. The scratching had grown louder, punctuated now by a rhythmic thumping, as if something heavy was throwing itself against the door. My hands trembled as I opened the book. The pages were filled with handwritten notes, diagrams, and what looked like prayers in various languages. A bookmark indicated a page titled Emergency Protocols. Below it were instructions for creating protective circles and barriers, complete with illustrations. Thump. The bathroom door shuddered in its frame. Working quickly, I used the chalk to draw a circle around the register area, copying the symbols from the book along its circumference. I poured salt along the line, reciting words I didn't understand from the page. Crack. Wood splintered as something struck the bathroom door with terrifying force. I completed the circle just as the bathroom door burst open. From my position behind the counter, I couldn't see the hallway, but darkness spilled from it. Not simply absence of light, but something deeper, like liquid shadow. Within that darkness, something moved. I caught glimpses, a limb too long to be human, fingers that bent backward, eyes that reflected light like an animal's. I clutched the pendant Uncle Lars had given me, its metal warm against my palm. The darkness reached the edge of my chalk circle and stopped, roiling against an invisible barrier. A voice whispered from within the shadows, neither male nor female, young nor old. "Let us in, Keeper. The door is open." My throat constricted. "What do you want?" "To cross over, to exist in your world." The darkness curled like smoke. So many spaces between things here, so many gaps to fill. What happened to the others? Eric, Tony. They serve, they bridge worlds, as will you in time. Something scraped across the floor. A fallen candy bar, sliding along the tile, pushed by an unseen force. It stopped just at the edge of my circle. "A gift," the voice said. "We are not unkind. We offer exchange. I don't want anything from you. You seek answers. We have them." The darkness pulsed, and within it appeared a face I recognized from news photos. Tony Gustafson. His eyes were wrong, too dark, too empty. "The rules protect the store," he said, voice hollow. "But not for your sake. They keep us contained, weakened." "That's why you took people? To weaken the rules?" The darkness rippled. "The rules can be broken by choice. We merely encourage those choices." Tony's face melted back into the shadows. "Your uncle knows more than he says." The voice continued. "Ask him about the Svensson cellar. Ask what his grandfather found there. Ice shot through my veins. How do you know about my uncle? We know all who have touched this place. The darkness withdrew slightly, contracting toward the hallway. Dawn approaches. We must retreat. The voice grew fainter. But we'll return tonight, and the next. There is no escaping us now that you've seen. I remained motionless in my protective circle as the darkness receded, slithering back down the hallway and into the bathroom. The door swung shut with a soft click. The store's normal sounds returned in a rush. Coolers humming, lights buzzing. I stayed in my circle until 6 a.m. when Harold arrived. He took one look at the chalk markings and paled. The door opened. I nodded, too exhausted to speak. Jesus. He crossed himself. You need to talk to Maggie Olson. Eric's mother? Why? Because she knows how to close what's been opened. He glanced nervously at the bathroom. And because she's been waiting for someone like you, someone who saw them and survived. I drove home in a fog of exhaustion and fear, my mind replaying the night's events. Uncle Lars was in the kitchen making coffee when I stumbled in. You look rough, he noted, eyebrows furrowed. Coffee? I collapsed into a chair. Something happened last night. His hand stilled on the coffee pot. What kind of something? The bathroom door opened. The words felt inadequate to describe the horror I'd witnessed. There was darkness and voices. Lars set a mug in front of me with unexpected gentleness. You're wearing the pendant. It wasn't a question. It helped. I wrapped my fingers around the warm mug. The darkness couldn't cross some circle I drew. Good. He pulled out a chair and sat heavily. Your grandmother's people knew about such things. Uncle Lars, what do you know about the Svensson cellar? His face drained of color. Who told you about that? The thing in the darkness. I took a sip of coffee, wincing at its bitterness. It said to ask what your grandfather found there. Lars was silent for a long moment, then stood and walked to a cabinet above the refrigerator. He returned with a dusty bottle of aquavit and poured a generous splash into his coffee. My grandfather, he began, worked for Lars Svensson as a farmhand. In the fall of 1931, Svensson became obsessed with his root cellar, spent hours down there, started telling folks he'd found a door. A door to what? He wouldn't say. Lars took a long swallow of his spiked coffee. One night, my grandfather heard screaming from the cellar. Found Svensson dead, surrounded by strange markings, and a hole in the earth that seemed to go down forever. My skin prickled. What happened to the hole? They filled it with concrete, tons of it, covered the whole area. He refilled his mug. When Kwik Trip bought the land, they dug it all up again. And now things are coming through. Lars nodded grimly. Maggie Olson might know more. Her family has been in this area since before the Svenssons. Harold said the same thing, that I need to talk to her. You should. Today. He stood up. I'll drive you out there after you've rested. I slept dreamlessly for 6 hours. When I woke, the sun was already lowering in the sky, painting the snow-covered fields gold and pink. Uncle Lars was waiting in his pickup, engine running. The Olson farm sat 8 miles outside of town, a white 2-story farmhouse with a red barn and several outbuildings. As we pulled into the gravel driveway, a large dog, some kind of husky mix, bounded toward us, barking enthusiastically. A stocky older man with a full beard emerged from the barn. Sven Olson, I presumed. He recognized my uncle and raised a hand in greeting. Lars. Been a while. Sven. My uncle nodded. This here's my nephew Finn. He's working nights at the Kwik Trip. Sven's expression hardened. Maggie's inside. Maggie Olson was a small woman with silver-streaked auburn hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her kitchen was warm and smelled of fresh bread, but her eyes were sharp and evaluating as she looked me over. "So you're the new night clerk." She poured coffee into ceramic mugs. "And you saw something?" I nodded, accepting the coffee. "Last night, the bathroom door opened. And before that?" "The woman in the red scarf, I'm guessing." "Yes, and phone calls, scratching noises." Maggie sighed, sitting down across from me. "It always follows the same pattern. First the small disturbances, then the manifestations, then..." She faltered. "Then people disappear," I finished. She nodded, eyes bright with unshed tears. "My Eric was a good boy, smart. He was saving for college, working that night shift. Then one morning, he just never came home." "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. "The police looked everywhere, said he must have run off." Her voice hardened. "But I know better. He's still there, trapped between our world and theirs. Can we help him? Them?" Maggie and Sven exchanged glances. "Maybe," she said finally. "But it's dangerous. What do you know about the Svensons?" I repeated what Lars had told me. Maggie nodded along, then stood and left the room, returning with an old leather-bound book similar to the one I'd found in the storage room. "The Svensons weren't just farmers," she explained, laying the book on the table. "They were keepers of old knowledge. Lars Svensson believed certain places were thin spots between worlds, doorways. And he found one in his cellar," I said. "He created one," Maggie corrected. "The symbols, the rituals, he was trying to reach something, and he succeeded." She opened the book to a page showing intricate diagrams, circles within circles, filled with strange symbols. My breath caught. They looked like the protective circle I'd drawn last night. "These barriers were designed to keep things in, not out," she continued. "The rules at the Kwik Trip do the same. They maintain the balance, keep the door from opening completely. But people have disappeared." She nodded grimly. "The entities need vessels to exist fully in our world. They take people when the rules weaken." "Like Eric," I murmured. "And now they've marked you," Sven said, speaking for the first time since we'd entered the kitchen. "Once they know you, they don't stop." A shiver ran down my back. "What can I do?" Maggie turned more pages in the book, stopping at an illustration of what looked like a sealing ritual. "We can close the door, permanently." Her finger traced the diagram. "But it requires someone who's seen them and survived. Someone they've spoken to." "Me," I realized. "Yes. And it must be done when the barrier is finished. 3:33 a.m. Tonight." Maggie nodded. "If you're willing." "What do I need to do?" "We'll come to the store after midnight," she explained. "You'll need to create a distraction so we can access the bathroom without being seen on cameras. Corporate monitors them remotely." "What kind of distraction?" "A power outage would work," Sven suggested. "Brief enough not to raise alarms, but long enough for us to get inside." "I can pull the breaker for a few minutes," I offered. "Good." Maggie closed the book. "Once inside, we'll need to perform the sealing ritual. It's not complicated, but it must be precise. And if it works, the door closes forever. The entities return to their world, and our world goes back to normal. Even the people they've taken? Eric? Tony?" Maggie's expression faltered. "I don't know. I hope so." As we drove back to town, Uncle Lars was unusually quiet. "You think this will work?" I finally asked. "If anyone can close that door, it's Maggie Olson." He kept his eyes on the snowy road. "But Thing, be careful. Those things, they're clever. They'll say anything to keep their doorway open." I nodded, fingering the pendant around my neck. I'll be careful. He dropped me off at the Kwik Trip 15 minutes before my shift. Jenny was already counting down her drawer, looking nervous. Everything okay? I asked, setting my backpack behind the counter. She glanced up, then quickly back down. Fine. Jenny, I said quietly, I know about the door. I'm going to try to close it. Her head snapped up, eyes wide with fear, and something else. Recognition? You can't, she whispered. Maggie Olson thinks we can. Tonight. Jenny's hand stilled on the money. They won't let you. Who won't? The visitors. She stepped back from the register. They're watching. Always watching. I studied her face, noticing for the first time how pale she looked, how her eyes never quite seemed to focus. Jenny, when was the last time you saw Tony Gustafson? She flinched as if I'd slapped her. I have to go. As she hurried toward the door, I called after her. Jenny, wait. She paused, hand on the door. Be careful driving home, I said lamely. A strange smile crossed her face. I don't drive anymore. Tony picks me up. The door closed behind her before I could respond. Through the window, I watched her walk across the dark parking lot to where a figure waited beside an old Camry. The man's face was in shadow, but something about his posture seemed wrong. Too stiff, too straight. As they drove away, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Minnesota winter. The hours until midnight crawled by. I followed the rules mechanically, locked the bathroom, unplugged coffee machines, all while preparing for what was to come. At 11:45, I checked the breaker box in the storage room, familiarizing myself with the switches. At 12:30, the phone rang. This was off schedule according to the rules. I let it ring 3 times, then answered cautiously. Kwik Trip 483. How may I help you? Don't let them in. Tony Gustafson's voice, hollow and distant. They'll trap us forever. Tony? Where are you? Between. We're all between. His voice grew fainter. The door goes both ways, Finn. Don't. The line went dead. At 1:15 a.m., headlights swept across the parking lot. I recognized Uncle Lars's truck. 3 figures emerged, Lars, Sven, and Maggie, carrying a large canvas bag. When they entered, I nodded in greeting. Ready? Maggie's eyes darted to the security cameras. Do it now. I hurried to the storage room and pulled the main breaker. The store plunged into darkness, emergency lights casting weak pools of illumination near the exits. As my eyes adjusted, I saw Maggie and Sven moving swiftly toward the bathroom, Lars close behind. I gave them 30 seconds, then restored power. The lights flickered back to life, computers rebooting with soft beeps. I returned to find the bathroom door ajar, voices murmuring inside. Approaching cautiously, I peered in. The small space had been transformed. Candles burned in the corners, and Maggie was drawing a complex pattern on the floor with chalk, reciting words in a language I didn't recognize. Sven and Lars stood by, holding open a page in the ancient book. Good, you're here, Maggie said without looking up. We need to begin. Stand in the center, Maggie instructed, completing the final symbols around the bathroom floor. The chalk markings formed concentric circles with strange rooms between them. We don't have much time. I hesitated at the doorway. What exactly are we doing? Sealing the breach, she replied, lighting another candle. The bathroom is built directly over the old cellar. The door between worlds is weakest here. The bathroom looked different somehow. The walls seemed to pulse subtly, as if breathing. The mirror reflected shadows that didn't match our movements. The entities crossed over gradually, Maggie continued, arranging small objects at cardinal points around the circle. A stone, a feather, a small bowl of water, and what looked like burnt wood. First through dreams, then through reflections. Eventually they could manifest physically, but only at certain times. That's why the rules specify times, I realized. 3:33 a.m., 4:13 a.m. Exactly. The boundaries weaken at specific moments. Maggie gestured for me to enter the circle. We need to perform the ritual exactly at 3:33. Sven checked his watch. 20 minutes. I stepped carefully into the center of the chalk design. The pendant around my neck felt warm against my skin. What now? We wait, Lars said, positioning himself by the door, and hope nothing interferes. The minutes ticked by in tense silence. Outside the bathroom, the store remained quiet. Too quiet. No phone calls, no falling chips in aisle 3. At 3:25 a.m., the lights flickered. A low hum built in the walls, vibrating through the floor. They know, Maggie whispered, clutching her book tighter. They're coming. The temperature dropped suddenly. My breath clouded in front of my face. The mirror began to fog over, strange symbols appearing in the condensation as if drawn by an invisible finger. Stand ready, Sven warned, pulling a small knife from his pocket. He pricked his finger, letting a drop of blood fall onto the chalk line. Blood of the bereaved to bind the door. Maggie did the same. Blood of the seeker to find a way. Lars followed suit. Blood of the land to guard the threshold. They looked at me expectantly. Blood of the witness to seal the breach, Maggie prompted. Sven handed me the knife. I pricked my finger, watching the crimson droplet fall to the chalk circle. It sizzled on contact, the white line briefly glowing red. The hum intensified. The mirror cracked from edge to edge with a sound like breaking ice. It's starting, Maggie said, opening the book to a marked page. When I begin the recitation, repeat the response after each line. Don't stop, no matter what you see or hear. I nodded, throat dry. 3:32, Sven announced, eyes on his watch. The sink faucet turned on by itself, water pouring out black as ink. The liquid defied gravity, flowing upward to form writhing shapes in the air. Don't look at it, Lars warned. Focus on Maggie. 10 seconds, Sven counted. 5, 4, 3, 2. At exactly 3:33 a.m., Maggie began to recite words in a language that sounded ancient, harsh consonants and flowing vowels that made my ears ache. After each phrase, she paused and I repeated what sounded like a response in the same language. The walls trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. The black water coalesced into a vaguely humanoid shape, reaching toward us with elongated limbs. Keep going, Lars urged when I faltered. Maggie's voice grew stronger, the words tumbling faster. The chalk lines began to glow, first white, then blue, then a deep purple that cast eerie shadows. The air in the small bathroom felt charged, like just before a lightning strike. The water creature lunged at the circle but couldn't cross the glowing boundary. It shrieked in frustration, the sound like metal scraping metal. We close the path, Maggie intoned in English. We close the path, I repeated. We sealed the door. We sealed the door. By blood and word, by fire and stone. I echoed her words, feeling a strange power building within the circle, a pressure against my eardrums. The bathroom door slammed shut, then burst open again. Standing in the doorway was Jenny, but her face was wrong, eyes too wide, smile too stretched. Stop, she said, voice overlaid with others. You're making a terrible mistake. Keep going, Sven growled. It's not her. The spirits aren't your enemies, Jenny continued, taking a step forward. They offer gifts, knowledge, power. Ignore it, Lars said. Maggie hadn't stopped her recitation. I forced myself to follow along, repeating each phrase, though the words felt like sand in my mouth. Jenny's form flickered like a bad TV signal, briefly showing something else beneath her skin. Something with too many joints, too many eyes. "Your uncle knows the truth," she hissed, focus shifting to Lars. "Tell them what really happened in the cellar, Lars Larson. Tell them what your grandfather took." Lars flinched but held his ground. "Keep going." The chalk lines flared brighter. The black water creature wailed, its form beginning to dissolve. Jenny's face contorted in rage. "Fools! You'll trap them forever." "That's the point," Sven muttered. "Not them," Jenny snarled, pointing at me. "Them!" Behind her, more figures appeared in the hallway. Tony Gustafson, his skin paper white, eyes hollow. And beside him, a young man who looked so much like Sven that he could only be Eric. Maggie faltered, a small cry escaping her lips. "Eric?" "Mom," the figure said. "Please stop. We can't come back if you close it." Sven stepped forward. "It's not him. It's using his image." "It is me, Dad." Eric's voice broke. "I'm trapped between worlds. The ritual won't free us. It'll seal us away forever." Tears streamed down Maggie's face, but she continued the recitation, voice shaking. I repeated the words, though each one felt like a betrayal as I watched Eric's desperate expression. "The final binding," Maggie said in English. "Speak their names to banish them." "What names?" I asked. "The names of those taken. You must renounce them." I looked at the figures in the doorway. Jenny, Tony, Eric, and now others behind them. Faces I didn't recognize, stretching back down the hallway. "I renounce you," I began. "Jenny." Her form flickered violently. Tony Gustafson. The black water creature shrieked. Eric Olson. "No!" Maggie cried. "Not my boy!" But it was too late. The name hung in the air. Eric's figure began to dissolve like smoke in wind. "Mom," he whispered. "I'm sorry." Maggie fell to her knees, sobbing. The ritual faltered. The chalk lines dimmed. The pressure in the room dropped suddenly. "No," Sven barked. "We have to finish it." Uncle Lars grabbed the book from Maggie's hands. "I'll do it." As he began to recite, the figures in the doorway rushed forward as one. The black water creature expanded, enveloping Jenny and Tony like a shroud. They crossed the threshold into the bathroom. "Stay in the circle," Lars shouted at me. I stood frozen as the entity surged toward us. It hit the boundary of the inner circle and recoiled, hissing. "The final words," Lars urged. "Now!" I stumbled through the closing phrases, my voice breaking. The chalk circle blazed with blue-white light. The walls shook, tiles cracked and fell from the ceiling. "By our will, by our blood, the door is closed." A concussive wave erupted from the circle, throwing everyone backward. I slammed against the bathroom wall, pain exploding in my shoulder. For a moment, I blacked out. When I came to, the bathroom was in ruins. The mirror had shattered completely. The sink hung from the wall at an angle, water spraying from broken pipes. The chalk markings were gone, erased by the blast. Sven was helping Maggie to her feet. Lars lay near the toilet, a gash on his forehead bleeding freely. "Uncle Lars?" I scrambled to him. "I'm all right," he groaned, sitting up slowly. "Did it work?" We looked around. The oppressive feeling had vanished. The air felt normal again. "I think so," I said. "No," Maggie whispered, staring at the floor. "Look." In the center of the room, where the chalk circles had been, a small crack had appeared in the tile. As we watched, it widened slightly, a faint glow emanating from within. "We weakened it," Sven said grimly, "but didn't close it entirely." "Why not?" I demanded. "We did everything right." Maggie looked at Lars, her expression hardening. "Because someone here doesn't want it closed." Lars avoided her gaze. "What's she talking about?" I asked him. Before he could answer, a new sound cut through the hiss of water. Store bells jingling. Someone had entered the front door. Who could that be at this hour? Sven whispered. We crept out of the bathroom, soaked and battered. In the harsh, fluorescent light of the store stood Patricia, looking strangely calm despite the chaos. "I was afraid of this," she said, surveying our bedraggled appearance. "You tried to close it." "Patricia," I started, "we can explain." "No need." She walked forward, her movements oddly stiff. "I've been expecting this since you first saw the woman in the red scarf." My blood ran cold. "How did you know that?" "I never told you specifically who I saw." She smiled, the expression never reaching her eyes. "Because she is me, of course." Patricia's form flickered, briefly revealing a gaunt figure in a crimson scarf before shifting back. "You're one of them," I whispered. "I am their voice in this world." She looked at Lars, just as your uncle was meant to be. All eyes turned to Lars, who stood pale and shaking. "What is she talking about?" I demanded. "Tell them, Lars," Patricia urged. "Tell them what your grandfather really found in the Svensson cellar." Lars swallowed hard. "A book, like Maggie's, but older, and a key." "A key to what?" Sven asked. "To the door between worlds," Patricia answered. "The Larson family were chosen as keepers. Your grandfather embraced this role, but your father rejected it." "And you?" I asked my uncle. Lars wouldn't meet my eyes. "I didn't believe any of it. Not until you started working at the Kwik Trip. He's been helping us all along," Patricia said, smiling coldly. "Sending his own nephew to feed our hunger." Rage boiled inside me. "Is that true? You sent me here knowing what would happen?" "No," Lars protested. "I gave you the pendant for protection. I tried to warn you." "Half measures," Patricia scoffed. "You knew the truth but lacked the courage to embrace your heritage." She turned to me. "But you, Finn Larson, have proven yourself worthy. You've seen us and survived. You've spoken with us and maintained your mind." "What do you want from me?" I asked, backing away. "To take your rightful place as keeper of the door." Patricia extended her hand. "In exchange for the safe return of those taken." Behind her, the front doors opened again. Jenny and Tony entered, followed by Eric and others, all pale, all moving with the same strange coordination, but unmistakably alive. Maggie gasped, reaching toward her son. "Eric?" "They can come back," Patricia said. "All of them, if you agree to maintain the balance, not to close the door, but to guard it, to follow the rules, and ensure others do too." "Don't listen," Sven warned. "It's a trick." But Maggie was already moving toward Eric, her face transformed by hope and longing. "Mom," Eric said, his voice faint but his own. "Please." Patricia turned to me, eyes gleaming. "What will it be, Finn? Close the door forever and condemn these souls to oblivion, or become the new keeper and save them all?" I fingered the pendant around my neck, mind racing. The ritual had failed, but we'd weakened the door. If I agreed to Patricia's terms, would I be saving these people or damning myself? "I need to think," I said. "There's no time," Patricia replied. "The door is unstable now. Choose quickly or lose everything." Behind her, Eric reached for his mother's hand. Their fingers touched, and Maggie sobbed with relief. "Finn, please," she begged. "Save my boy." The weight of the decision pressed down on me like a physical force. Close the door forever, or become its keeper. In that moment, as I looked at the faces of those trapped between worlds, I made my choice. "I'll do it," I said, the words burning in my throat. "I'll be the keeper. Patricia's smile widened. A wise decision. Finn, no. Uncle Lars grabbed my arm. You don't understand what you're agreeing to. I jerked away from him. And whose fault is that? You knew all along. Not everything, he insisted. I only knew pieces. Stories my father told me that I never believed. Enough, Patricia cut in. The bargain is struck. She extended her hand toward me. Come. I hesitated, glancing at Maggie, who stood clutching Eric's cold hand. Her face was torn between joy and terror. If I do this, I said to Patricia, everyone comes back, Jenny, Tony, Eric, all of them. They return to this world, yes. Fully? Not as whatever they are now? Patricia's expression flickered with something like amusement. They will live again. Different, perhaps, but alive. And what exactly does being keeper entail? You maintain the balance, follow the rules, ensure others do as well. She gestured around the store. This place was built as a crossing point. It requires management. Management, I repeated flatly, like a supernatural border patrol. If you prefer that analogy, yes. Her patience was visibly thinning. The door wants to open fully. The rules keep it from swinging too wide, too fast. I took a deep breath. And if I refuse after all? Patricia's face hardened. Then the door destabilizes completely. No more rules, no more boundaries. She glanced at the returned people standing silently behind her. And these souls remain trapped between worlds forever. Sven stepped forward. You're lying. The ritual was working until you interfered. Patricia ignored him, focusing on me. Choose now, Finn Larson. Time is running out. The pendant around my neck had grown hot enough to burn. I wrapped my fingers around it, feeling its strange power pulsing against my palm. An idea struck me, desperate and dangerous, but possibly our only chance. I accept, I said, stepping toward Patricia. Show me what to do. Relief washed over Maggie's face. Uncle Lars looked devastated. Patricia nodded in satisfaction. Follow me. She led me toward the bathroom, the others trailing behind. The small room still lay in ruins, water pooling on the floor from broken pipes. The crack in the center had widened further, glowing with an eerie bluish light. The first act of the Keeper is to re-establish the boundary, Patricia explained. She withdrew a small object from her pocket, a key, ancient and black, seemingly made of some strange metal. This belongs to your family line. My grandfather's key, Lars whispered. The Sami pendant, I said, suddenly understanding. It's the same metal. Patricia nodded. Both forged beyond the door, in the world between worlds. One opens, one protects. She handed me the key. It felt unnaturally heavy, thrumming with energy. Place it in the center of the breach, she instructed. I knelt by the glowing crack, key in one hand, pendant still clutched in the other. Everyone watched in tense silence. Now, Patricia continued, recite the Keeper's oath. She began to speak words in that same ancient language from the ritual. I pretended to follow along, mumbling nonsense syllables while watching her closely. Her attention was fixed on the key in my hand, her expression hungry. In that moment, I made my real choice. In one fluid motion, I yanked the pendant from my neck, wrapped its cord around the key, and slammed both into the crack. "What are you doing?" Patricia shrieked. "Closing the door my way," I growled. The pendant and key connected with the crack in a blinding flash of blue-white light. Energy surged through the floor, up the walls, across the ceiling. The building itself seemed to groan. Patricia lunged at me, her human disguise falling away completely, revealing the gaunt, twisted creature beneath, all wrong angles and 2 long limbs. I scrambled backward as her elongated fingers grabbed for my throat. "Finn!" Uncle Lars tackled her from the side, sending both crashing into the broken sink. The crack in the floor widened explosively, tiles shattering outward. A howling wind erupted from the opening, pulling at our clothes, our hair, our very bodies. "Everyone out!" I yelled, grabbing Maggie's arm and pulling her toward the door. "Not without Eric," she cried. I looked back. Eric and the other returned people stood motionless, their forms beginning to waver like heat mirages. "Mom," Eric said, his voice clearer than before. "It's okay. We need to go back through." "No." Maggie fought against me. Sven grabbed her other arm. "Maggie, we have to go." Patricia had thrown Lars aside and now stood at the edge of the widening chasm, her form elongating, stretching toward the light below. "You fool," she howled at me. "You've destabilized everything." The store's emergency lights flashed on as the main power failed. Through the bathroom doorway, I could see products flying off shelves, windows shattering. "Get out now!" Lars bellowed, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. We dragged Maggie from the bathroom as the floor continued to give way. Eric and the others remained still, their forms growing increasingly transparent. "I love you," Eric called to his parents, voice fading. "I'm sorry." Patricia let out an inhuman wail as her body began to stretch and twist, pulled downward into the opening. "You cannot close it forever. We will find another way." The roof above the bathroom collapsed with a deafening crash. Dust and debris filled the air, choking us as we stumbled toward the front of the store. "The rules," Patricia's voice echoed, distorted and fading. "Without the rules, the balance fails. You've doomed both worlds." We burst through the front doors into the cold night air. Behind us, the Kwik Trip shuddered, like a living thing in pain. The walls buckled, windows exploded outward. "Get to the trunk," Lars shouted, pushing us toward the parking lot. We had barely reached his pickup when the building imploded with a thunderous roar. The ground beneath it collapsed, taking the entire structure down into a gaping sinkhole. A final pulse of blue light shot upward from the center of the destruction, a column of energy that pierced the night sky before dissipating like mist. Then silence, broken only by the distant wail of sirens. We stood in shocked disbelief, staring at the smoking crater where Kwik Trip 483 had stood minutes before. Maggie fell to her knees, sobbing. Sven knelt beside her, arms around her shoulders, his own tears carving tracks through the dust on his face. Uncle Lars approached me slowly, limping slightly. "What did you do back there?" "I combined the pendant and the key," I explained, still struggling to breathe normally. "One opens, one protects. Together, I thought they might cancel each other out," he finished, "or create something new." "Did it work?" I asked. "Is the door closed?" Lars looked back at the destruction. "I think so. It feels different now." "Different how?" "Lighter." He touched his chest. Like something that was pressing down has lifted. In the distance, emergency vehicles approached, lights flashing against the snow. "What do we tell them?" I asked. "Gas leak," Lars replied. "It'll be believable enough with the evidence gone." "And the people? Eric, Tony, Jenny?" His face fell. "I don't know, Finn. I truly don't." We watched as fire trucks and police cars pulled up to the scene. Officials jumped out, shouting orders, securing the area. One of them spotted us and hurried over. "Anyone hurt?" the officer asked, taking in our battered appearance. "We're okay," Lars answered. "We were just driving by when it happened." The officer nodded, obviously skeptical, but with bigger concerns at hand. "Stay here. Someone will take your statement soon." As he rushed back to the perimeter, I noticed something odd about the crater. Despite the collapsed building, there was no sign of broken pipes, no water spraying from ruptured lines. The sink was broken, I whispered to Lars. Water was floating everywhere. Where did it go? He stared at the side. Maybe when the floor collapsed. No, I shook my head. Look around. No debris, no merchandise, nothing but a hole. The realization hit us simultaneously. It didn't collapse, Lars murmured. It went through. The whole building, everything inside it, including the people. Eric, Tony, Jenny, Patricia. An EMT approached us, thermal blankets in hand. You folks should get checked out at the hospital. We're fine, Lars assured him. Just shaken up. Still, protocol. My sister-in-law's having a panic attack, Lars interrupted, gesturing to Maggie, who was indeed hyperventilating as Sven tried to comfort her. Can you help her first? As the EMT hurried to Maggie's side, Lars pulled me a few steps away. The pendant and key, he said quietly. They weren't destroyed. They went through with everything else. Does that matter? I don't know. His eyes were troubled. But if they crossed over, someone on the other side could use them, I realized, to open the door again. Possibly. So this isn't over. Lars shook his head slowly. I don't think so. But whatever happens next won't be here. Not at this spot. I looked back at the crater, trying to imagine where everything had gone. Was there a backwards Kwik Trip now? In that other world? Were Eric and the others there, still trapped between lives? Your grandfather, I said. In the stories, what happened to him after he found the key? Lars hesitated. He changed. Began to see things others couldn't. Places others couldn't go. Like what? Doors everywhere. Ordinary doors that led to extraordinary places. Lars looked at me intently. Finn, have you noticed anything strange since you used the pendant? Now that he mentioned it, I had seen something odd while staring at the crater. Just for a moment, the empty hole had seemed to shimmer, revealing what looked like an inverted version of the gas station, its lights glowing from underneath. Maybe, I admitted. I'm not sure. Before we could discuss it further, a police officer approached for our statements. For the next hour, we repeated our fabricated story, driving by, explosion, rushing to help. The authorities seemed to accept the gas leak theory, especially after utility crews arrived and began discussions about underground lines. By dawn, we were finally allowed to leave. Sven and Maggie followed us back to Uncle Lars's house in their truck, all of us too shaken to be alone. As we pulled into the driveway, I noticed something unusual on the front porch. A small cardboard box that hadn't been there when we left. Stay in the car, Lars ordered, approaching the package cautiously. He examined it without touching, then called me over. It's addressed to you. Sure enough, my name was written on top in neat flowing script. No return address, no postage. Should I open it? I asked. Lars nodded grimly. I think you have to. Inside the box, nestled in crumpled newspaper, lay a single item, a red scarf, and beneath it, a handwritten note. Rules can be rewritten. We'll be seeing you, Keeper. The red scarf felt wrong in my hands. Ordinary fabric that somehow carried an extraordinary weight. Uncle Lars insisted we burn it immediately. We watched it curl and blacken in his backyard fire pit, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that destroying it had accomplished nothing. In the days that followed, life in Halleck attempted to return to normal. The Kwik Trip incident dominated local news, with authorities finally settling on a sinkhole explanation. The underlying limestone had eroded, they claimed, causing the gas station to collapse. Plans to rebuild were already underway. I attended the memorial service for Erik Olsson, though his body had never been found. The church was packed, a testament to how beloved he'd been in the community. Maggie stood stoic beside Sven, accepting condolences with quiet dignity. When she saw me, something passed between us, a shared understanding that transcended words. "He's not gone," she whispered when I approached. "Just somewhere else now." I nodded, hoping she was right. A week after the incident, I sat with Uncle Lars at his kitchen table, nursing a beer and discussing my future. "I've got an offer to work construction up in Grand Forks," I told him. "Decent pay, steady hours." "You're leaving then?" It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "I need to. Every time I drive past that empty lot." "I understand." He toyed with his beer bottle. "But Finn, you should know. What happened there? What you did with the pendant and key. It marked you." "What do you mean?" "The note called you Keeper. That means something." His eyes were grave. "They don't give up easily." "The door is closed," I insisted. "The whole building's gone." "Doors can be rebuilt," he countered, "especially when the key and pendant crossed over with it." I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache building. "So what am I supposed to do? Stay here forever, guarding an empty lot?" Lars shook his head. "No, but be vigilant, watch for signs, and if you ever see another list of rules..." "Run the other way," I finished. Exactly. That night, I dreamed of Erik Olsson. We stood in a version of Kwik Trip number 483 that was both familiar and wrong. Colors inverted, angles slightly askew. The air hummed with energy. "You shouldn't be here," Erik said, his form more solid than I'd ever seen it. "Where is here exactly?" I asked, looking around the twisted store. "The space between. The halfway place." He gestured to the walls, which seemed to breathe slightly. "Exists alongside your world, touching at certain points. Like the gas station." He nodded. "Places built on thresholds, crossroads, borders." "Are you okay?" I asked awkwardly. A smile ghosted across his face. "I'm something. Not alive, not dead, but I exist." "And the others? Jenny, Tony?" "Here too. We all serve the purpose." "What purpose?" Eric's expression darkened. "You'll find out soon enough. She's not finished with you." "Patricia?" "The woman in the red scarf." "She has many names, many faces." He glanced nervously over his shoulder. "I shouldn't be talking to you. They'll know." "Who's they?" "The travelers, the ones who walk between." He began to fade. "Be careful of doors, Finn." "All doors." I woke with a jolt, heart racing. Morning sunlight streamed through the window, but the dream felt more real than my waking surroundings. I could still smell the inverted Kwik Trip, like ozone and wet earth. After a quick shower, I went downstairs to find Uncle Lars already up, coffee brewing. He took one look at my face and frowned. "You saw something." I nodded, describing the dream. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly troubled. "It's starting," he said when I finished. "Just like with my grandfather." "What happened to him exactly?" Lars sighed. "After he found the key, he began having visions. Then he started sleepwalking. They'd find him in strange places, old wells, abandoned houses, once even standing in the middle of Lake of the Woods at night, miles from shore with no boat nearby." "How?" "He claimed to use doors, regular doors that temporarily connected to other places." Lars poured coffee into mugs with shaking hands. "Eventually, he disappeared altogether. Left a note saying he'd found the right door and was going through. And no one ever saw him again. Not in this world." He met my eyes. but I think you just did, in your dream. Ice shot through my veins. Your grandfather was one of them. Maybe, or maybe he became something else entirely. Lars pushed a mug toward me. The point is, this isn't over for you. I drove to Grand Forks that afternoon to look at an apartment near my new job site. The city felt reassuringly normal after Halleck. People going about their business. No mysterious gas stations or doors to other worlds. The apartment was small but clean, on the 3rd floor of a converted warehouse downtown. As the landlord showed me around, I felt myself relaxing for the first time in weeks. This could work. A fresh start, away from strange rules and interdimensional portals. "So what do you think?" the landlord asked, jangling his keys. "I'll take it," I said. "When can I move in? End of the week work for you? Just need first and last month's rent." We shook hands on the deal, and I wrote him a check, feeling oddly optimistic. Maybe Uncle Lars was being paranoid. Maybe the nightmare was truly over. On my drive back to Halleck, I stopped at a roadside diner for coffee. The place was nearly empty, just a trucker at the counter and an elderly couple in a booth by the window. I took a seat at the far end, ordering coffee and pie from a tired-looking waitress. As I waited, I noticed something strange about the restroom door at the back of the diner. It seemed to shimmer slightly, the wood grain shifting in patterns that weren't quite right. I blinked hard, and the effect disappeared. Just my imagination. Had to be. The waitress returned with my order. As she set down the plate, I noticed she wore a name tag. Patricia. My blood went cold. "Something wrong, honey?" she asked, her voice nothing like the Patricia I knew. "No, sorry. Just tired." I forced a smile. She nodded sympathetically. "Long drive ahead?" "Not too bad. Heading back to Halleck." "Halleck?" She frowned. "Isn't that where that gas station collapsed last week? Terrible business." "Yeah, I was there, actually." Her eyebrows shot up. "No kidding? You're lucky to be alive." "Yes, so." She refilled my coffee cup. "Well, enjoy your pie. Holler if you need anything else." As she walked away, I felt my heartbeat returning to normal. Just a coincidence. Patricia was a common name. I ate quickly, eager to get back on the road. When I finished, I left cash on the table and headed for the exit. As I passed the restroom, the door shimmered again, more noticeably this time. The wood grain swirled like water, forming patterns that almost resembled letters. Despite every instinct screaming at me to leave, I found myself drawn toward it. My hand reached for the knob, almost of its own accord. The door swung open to reveal not a bathroom, but a long, dimly lit hallway that couldn't possibly fit within the diner's dimensions. The walls were lined with doors, dozens of them stretching into darkness. I stumbled backward, slamming the door shut. No one in the diner seemed to have noticed anything amiss. The trucker continued eating his meal. The elderly couple chatted quietly. I hurried outside to my car, hands shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice before managing to unlock the door. As I slid behind the wheel, movement in my rearview mirror caught my eye. The waitress, Patricia, stood in the diner's doorway, watching me. As our eyes met in the mirror, her face rippled like disturbed water, briefly revealing another face beneath, gaunt, with two wide eyes and a familiar, hungry expression. I peeled out of the parking lot, heart hammering against my ribs. It wasn't over. It would never be over. Back in Halleck, I packed my meager belongings in a frantic rush. Uncle Lars watched from the doorway, expression grim. "You saw something." "Doors," I confirmed, stuffing clothes into my duffel bag. "And her. Patricia, or whatever she really is." He nodded. "I'm surprised. Where will you go?" "I don't know. Somewhere far from here. Canada, maybe." "It won't matter," he said quietly. Distance means nothing to them. They'll find you through the doors. I paused, a shirt half folded in my hands. Then what am I supposed to do? Learn to control it. He sat on the edge of the bed. My grandfather wrote journals before he disappeared. Notes about the doors, how to find them, how to choose where they lead. You have these journals. Some. Others were lost. He met my eyes. But I think you might be able to find them. How? Through the doors, if you can learn to navigate them, to control which ones you open. He trailed off. You could find answers, maybe even find a way to truly close the breach. Or I could disappear like your grandfather. That's the risk. He didn't sugarcoat it. But running won't save you. They've marked you as keeper. They'll keep finding you, keep testing you. I sank down beside him, suddenly exhausted. I never asked for this. None of us did. He patted my shoulder awkwardly. But here we are. That night, I dreamed of doors, hundreds of them, thousands, stretching in every direction through an infinite gray fog. Some were ornate, carved with strange symbols. Others were simple, wooden, familiar. One by one, they opened as I passed, revealing glimpses of other places, other times. Eric stood beside me in the fog, more substantial than before. "You're beginning to see," he said. "The spaces between. I don't want to see. Too late for that." He gestured at the endless doors. "You cross the threshold when you combine the key and pendant. Now you're part of the system." "What system?" "The balance." His expression was sympathetic. "Every door must have a keeper, someone to decide who passes through and when. And that's me now? By your own choice, yes." I shook my head. I was trying to close the door permanently. "No door stays closed forever," Eric said. "The rules can be broken, changed, rewritten, but they cannot be eliminated." "So what happens now?" Eric pointed to a simple wooden door standing alone in the fog. It looked exactly like the one from my uncle's spare bedroom. "Now you choose. Stay in your world and wait for them to find you again. Or step through and learn to control the doors yourself." "What's on the other side of that one?" "I don't know." He began to fade. "That's the nature of doors, Finn. You never know for sure until you open them." I woke at dawn, the dream still vivid in my mind. The bedroom door stood slightly ajar, though I was certain I'd closed it before going to sleep. As I watched, it swung open wider, revealing not the hallway of my uncle's house, but a long, fog-shrouded corridor lined with doors. I sat frozen on the bed, heart pounding. This wasn't a dream. Somehow, the door to my room had become a gateway to somewhere else. Footsteps echoed in the corridor, slow, measured, approaching. A figure emerged from the fog, tall and thin, wearing a red scarf that trailed behind like a streak of blood. "Hello, Keeper," Patricia said, her voice reverberating strangely. "Ready for your first lesson?" The bell above the door chimes as I lock up Kwik Trip 483 for the night. 6 months on the job, and no one in Halleck questions why I'm the only employee who works the graveyard shift. Some folks raise eyebrows when they notice I've covered every mirror in the store with black cloth. Others wonder why I chalk strange symbols on the threshold each evening. Small-town folks are practical, though. As long as the coffee's hot and the gas pumps work, they don't dig too deep. I finish my closing checklist, a document far more complex than the corporate version. My additions include checking the storage room lock for scratch marks, listening for whispers in the dairy cooler, and measuring the exact angle of shadows in aisle 3. Just as I complete the final task, my phone buzzes. A text from Maggie Olson. "Anything tonight?" "Nothing unusual," I reply. "How's Eric?" She sends back a photo. Eric sitting at their kitchen table, pale, but smiling. Getting him back wasn't easy. It required sacrifices, bargains with entities that exist in the spaces between reality. But he's home now, even if he sometimes stares at ordinary doors for hours, or speaks in languages that have never existed on this side. The store feels different after hours, alive in ways that defy explanation. Coolers hum in harmonies too perfect to be mechanical. Shadows move against the flow of light. The bathroom door occasionally knocks from the inside, gentle but persistent. I hang up my name badge and retrieve a different one from my pocket. This one simply reads "Keeper" in flowing script that changes color depending on who's looking at it. "Ready?" Patricia asks, materializing beside the coffee counter. Her red scarf is the only vibrant thing about her. The rest seems slightly transparent, as if she's not fully committed to existing in this reality. I nod, pulling a ring of peculiar keys from my pocket. "Which one's tonight?" "4 breaches, one in Fargo, another in Bemidji, 2 more up north, near the Canadian border." She consults a ledger that wasn't in her hands a moment ago. "The northern ones are troublesome. Something large trying to squeeze through." I select a key made of dark metal that feels too cold against my skin. Let's start there. We approach the bathroom door, the primary portal in this threshold space. The rules are strict about its usage, specific times, specific words to speak before turning the handle. I've learned the hard way what happens when those rules are broken. The lock clicks open to reveal not the bathroom's tiled interior, but a swirling corridor of mist and floating doorways. My domain now, the space between worlds that I've been tasked with maintaining. Uncle Lars visits sometimes, bringing journals from his grandfather, the previous keeper, before he ventured too deep into the in-between. The knowledge helps, but some lessons can only be learned through experience, like how to navigate the floating doors, how to sense which ones lead to safety and which open onto hungry voids, how to speak with the entities that dwell in the threshold spaces without losing pieces of yourself in the conversation. A chill breeze flows from the corridor, carrying whispers in languages no human throat could produce. Patricia steps through first, her form becoming more substantial as she enters her native realm. I follow, the weight of responsibility settling across my shoulders. The door swings shut behind us, sealing off the gas station from the corridor of worlds. To the customers who arrive tomorrow morning, nothing will seem amiss. The night manager will have restocked the coolers, cleaned the floors, and updated the price tags. All perfectly normal tasks. They'll never know that I spent the darkest hours walking between realities, sealing breaches, and negotiating with things that have never known sunlight. They won't see the residue of other worlds that sometimes clings to my fingertips, or notice how I instinctively step over thresholds in a specific pattern. And they certainly won't understand why I enforce the store's peculiar policies with such rigid insistence. Why certain items can't be sold after midnight. Why the bathroom is always out of order during specific hours. These rules aren't arbitrary anymore. They're the foundation of safety for everyone who enters Kwik Trip 483. The balance between worlds rests on these small, strange rituals. It's not the life I would have chosen. But as I move through the misty corridor toward the troublesome northern doorways, I realize it's the life I was always heading toward, standing at the threshold, keeping watch, making sure what belongs on the other side stays there. Everyone has their purpose. Mine just happens to exist between worlds.